Hey everyone, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Justin, and today we're talking about the rumors that the Toronto Maple Leafs are interested in Chicago's Patrick Kane. A superstar, it sounds like it's coming out of nowhere and not feasible at all, but Paul Bissonnette-Biznasty, he sparked all this rumor because he went on Spit and Chicklets and said that he guarantees that Kyle Dubas is going to not only go after Patrick Kane, but acquire him so that Patrick Kane and Austin Matthews can play together. And then further adding to the fire, I believe it was Pierre LeBrun who released that there were 3 teams that were interested in pursuing Patrick Kane, and he did list Toronto as one of those teams. So, I mean, this all seems like a complete pipe dream to me, but I wanted to give my thoughts on the possibility of the Toronto Maple Leafs getting Patrick Kane. Before I go any further, quick plug, if you do like this video, click like and subscribe. I would really appreciate all that feedback, and definitely leave a comment down below as well. So, I mean, instant feedback. In a perfect world, yeah, I would love Patrick Kane on my team, just as I would love any superstar in this league to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But do I think this would be the right move? No. And to backtrack even further, do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs are getting Patrick Kane. I think that the Chicago Blackhawks will get a better package somewhere else. And I don't think we're willing, and I don't think we should cough up the assets that would be required to get a player that is very offensively minded, but a one-way player. He had bad defensive statistics last year, albeit on a bad Chicago team, but throughout his entire career, not known as a defensive player, known as a very, very good point producer. But that's really all he is. And at 33, turning 34 in about a couple months here, he's getting up there in age, is set to decline any year now, and he's on an expiring deal of a contract where it's up in the air whether he would sign an extension here. And even then, you're signing an extension for someone that's already 34, 35. Maybe it's a 3-year deal. You're pushing 40 at that point, and he's coming off of a 92-point season. Who knows what he'll do this year on an even worse Chicago Blackhawk team, likely. Who knows what he'll do, but he could command good money in free agency still. Do you want to give a 3-year term, hypothetically, to a player that's 35 at upwards of $5 million? To me, it's too rich, it's too expensive. We do know that the salary cap is going up in a couple of years, so that might help a little bit. But with the Leafs' current roster situation, I just don't see it being the right move to make at this time. Now, the number one thing that I think that the Leafs need to address, and I've made this comment in videos in the past, is their forward group, and it's their secondary scoring. So I do think Patrick Kane would be the perfect acquisition for this team because he would be able to produce in the regular season behind that Matthews line, or if he's on that Matthews line. But it gives really, really powerful offensive depth. And he's done it in the playoffs as well, which is where the Leafs have really struggled. Their goaltending has been okay in the playoffs. Their defensive group has actually been very good in the playoffs. It's their scoring. They always struggle to score in the playoffs. So Patrick Kane would be a massive addition to that. But what would it cost? Well, it would likely cost a roster player because the Leafs would need to shed some cap. So whether that be someone like Alex Kerfoot or Jake Muzzin. But then Chicago's in a rebuild. They want young assets or they want draft picks. So, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking an A-level prospect, whether that's someone like Nick Robertson, Topi Niemela, Roni Hirvonen, Nick Robertson, Matthew Nyes, one of those kinds of players, or even multiple of those players. Rasmus Sandin is not signed, but he's a restricted free agent. Maybe he's involved in that deal. And then we're looking at first-round draft picks as well. For what? We're looking at, again, a 34-year-old. Yes, he'd be 50% retained, but still over $5 million on the cap. So even if you're shedding Jake Muzzin or Alex Kerfoot, you're getting a player back at the very similar number. Well, much higher than Alex Kerfoot, but very similar to Jake Muzzin. So we're already in a cap situation right now that we're not comfortable in. We'd just be in the exact same situation with Patrick Kane, except we'd be losing a bunch of assets in our development. So That's a big cost, a really big cost. And I've always been of the belief as well that when you have the talent that's currently on the Leafs, you don't need to surround it with other big time talent. You don't need other superstars around them. Matthews and Marner don't need a superstar on their wing. In fact, they need a role player, which is why they fit so well with someone like Zach Hyman and why they're fitting so well with someone like Michael Bunting. Now, Michael Bunting is making $950,000 for a 2-year deal, and he fits so well on that first line. Of course, he's going to get a raise, but the point is, you need someone that's going to play a specific role. And Patrick Kane is going to play a great role in adding to the scoring ability, but it's not necessarily what the line needs. And the same thing applies for Tavares and Nylander. You need someone on that line that's going to play that role. Again, someone kind of like that Bunting Hyman kind of player. I think they would mesh really well with that line. Let's say you slot Patrick Kane in the lineup. Where does he play? Well, I would see him playing with Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews has openly said multiple times that he's always looked up to Patrick Kane, that he's been an inspiration to him. So it'd be so cool to see them playing together. But would you then demote Mitch Marner and have Kane with Matthews and Bunting, and then Marner on the second line with Tavares? But then does that drop Nylander down to the third line, which I'm not opposed to? I really like that depth, but is it the smartest decision, or do you play Nylander on that line? And in which case, if you've got Nylander, Marner, and Tavares, well, that's a very lethal line. Who's getting the puck? Well, you probably got John Tavares being the guy that's first on the attack and getting the puck in those board battles, but that's not the role you really want him to be in. You want someone else to be that puck retriever. You want someone else to be the forechecker, the first one in the zone, and get the puck to the likes of Tavares and Nylander. And that's not going to be William Nylander. He's not the kind of player that likes to go into the corners and battle. And it's definitely not going to be Patrick Kane. So it doesn't make complete sense. The only reason why it would make sense is if you are moving one of Marner or Nylander and replacing them with Patrick Kane, but that's a big no-no for me. I am so against that. I do not want to sacrifice a young star for an old star on an expiring deal that you don't know if he's going to sign an extension. Again, even if you do sign an extension, is it the smartest decision to sign a guy that's going to be pushing 30 to a plus $5 million deal when you've got William Nylander at 6.9, but he's so young, or Mitch Marner at, almost $11 million, but he's a superstar, one of the best players in the league? It's just not worth making that move. You would need more in that deal, but again, it's just a no for me, not the right trading partner. Now, again, I will say, if the Leafs did find a way to go out and make a deal for Patrick Kane, I'll be the first to admit it. I would be very excited. I'd be stoked. I would probably go out and get a Patrick Kane jersey. But as far as just evaluating the whole situation, to me, it's not the smart move. It doesn't make any sense. I'd rather spend the assets that would be required for a Patrick Kane trade in someone else that's maybe a little bit less money, maybe even a little bit less stature, but more, I guess, fitting for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we got to remember, on the left wing, we do have some players that are definitely going to be stepping into the roster. Between Matthew Nyes, after his NCAA season ends, he will surely be coming and joining the Leafs at the end of this year. Nick Robertson, we expect to take a step in the roster, and who knows, maybe those guys are able to provide that offensive depth that we would be looking for in a Patrick Kane trade. But you'd be, again, getting a younger player, someone you can develop, someone new into the system. Or you can develop those pieces and trade them as well, which you can't do for Patrick Kane. So overall, not the right move in my books. I would love to see it one day. If there wasn't a salary cap, if there was a luxury tax, hell yeah, I'm all in. I want Patrick Kane on my roster, and go out and get anybody else as well. But with the salary cap the way it is, with it not going up for a couple more years, it just doesn't make sense to me. If the Leafs end up pulling this off by only moving like a roster player, a pick, and a prospect, that's a good return. To me, someone's going to overpay for him. I can see Edmonton paying a lot. I can see New York paying a lot. They do have the assets to be able to pull that off. I don't want the Leafs in a bidding war where they have to feel like they have to up the prospects and the picks that they're going to be sending. I don't want the Leafs or Dubas involved in that. And I really hope that Dubas doesn't feel like, he's got that added pressure that he needs to make these stupid, rash decisions just because he feels like his job's on the line. I made the comments in my Defending Dubas video that I think he's actually done a very good job so far in not making those rash, dumb decisions just because he does feel pressure from the media, from the fans, even from management. So I would trust that he's in the same boat and doesn't go for it in this one. But I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Would you like to see Patrick Kane on the Leafs? I think most people would be excited to see it, but do you think it would be the right move? What would you be willing to spend? Where would you see him in the roster? So many question marks overall, just adding up to, again, a no from me. But thank you so much for clicking on this video. We're only pretty much a month away from regular season action. I am so excited. Preseason starts in just a few weeks. I've got some videos coming up before the season on my predictions and some hot takes. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you in the next video.